From the break, everyone. I'm a program administrator here at DHCD, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Our next session is titled When the Project Goes Off Track, Asking Why. Our speaker will be Sherry Miles, and she's been our moderator for the past 3 days, but her official title here at DHCD is Program Manager. And I'm telling you now, Sherry's a ball of energy, so she's going to encourage your participation and your questions. So please use the chat function or the raised hand emoji, and I will get her attention. So with that said, take it away, Sherry.
All right. And Jenna, you can pull it up anytime. That's fine. Thank you. Okay. So, we talked a little bit about this morning, do we circle back to our why only when there's a problem? Do we kind of keep it in the forethought all the time? And so this session is about what happens when it doesn't go right and how to get it back. Next slide, please. So when your project goes off the track, in each session that we've been going through, we've talked about the why. And a lot of those whys are critical to the function of the program. Why do we need reports? Why do we need to tell our story? Why do we need to document with our record keeping? Why do we need to turn in the items needed to get us under contract? But once you're under contract, and sometimes when they go off track, we really have to start asking the difficult whys. And that's what we're going to talk about in this session. Next slide. Okay, so this is the perfect project, right? You're under contract, smooth sailing ahead, straight track, and next stop, project completion, no issues, no bumps, no curves. Unfortunately, most of the time, this is not real life. Next slide. Unfortunately, this is what our programs end up looking like sometimes, our projects. There's a lot of interplay with the management teams. There's a lot of information between timelines, between budgets, between paperwork turned in, and they start looking like this. And it's very hard to kind of untangle that and get to your why again. And that's really what we want to go through. And as Sabrina said, this is an interactive discussion. So if you have comments, please throw them in chat and Sabrina will let me know and we will discuss as we go through. So next slide. Yes. Think about being a toddler, having a grandchild that's a toddler, having a dog that's 2. Why? It's always why, right? And they ask and ask and ask until you just want to go crawl into a corner sometimes. But there's a reason you're getting to that point. So I would say this. We're going to talk about channeling that toddler and getting back to the why. And it has been said, not that I lived back then, but it has been said that Socrates, when they would have discussions and meetings, said that you had to ask a minimum of 5 why questions in order to get down to the real reason. And that's what we're going to talk about is you can't just ask a superficial why because there's personalities, there's people that can get offended, there's items that yeah, that sounds good, but it's not the real reason of why you got off track. And so you have to keep kind of delving down into that and as we say, getting down in the weeds in order to find out that why. And so we want to tell you, as you're doing this, make sure, you leave anger at the door, try and leave your personalities at the door and feelings, because when you're going through those whys, it's very easy to point out, oh, well, Kathy Boatwright did that and she didn't turn that in. That's not the why. That's just a reason of, how you're getting to that why. So, one of the reminders is that as you're going through your whys, you have to understand that sometimes the outcome is not where you started. It is our human nature to look at a why or look at a problem and say, fix it, right? You jump in and it's, how do we fix it? And you leave the why out of it. And a lot of times that fix isn't exactly great. So what we want to do is, don't grab the toolbox, don't grab the duct tape. My husband is famous for duct tape fixes everything. Don't grab that and think, I'm just going to wrap the project in duct tape and we're going to get it through. We need to really figure out why it got off track and what's the best mode for getting it back on track and getting you guys moving in the right direction. And again, on time and on budget and well documented. So next slide. Okay, so it's critical to figure out your why before jumping to your how. And the 5 whys is actually a business mode. It says you need to go through and talk about your 5 whys in order to get to that root cause. So the very first question you need to do is define your problem. So you want to say, why is this happening? Okay, and I'm going to call on Kathy again, and I'm going to say, well, what if the first question is, well, Kathy said it would take 1 month and we're in month 3 and DHCD is hollering at us. Okay, but Kathy didn't cause the problem. Kathy just told you that it would take 1 month. So you need to go further down in that. And you need to say, well, each project is going to have different questions. And I've just put some examples here, but some of them are, go back to your original why. Why did we want this project to start with? Why was it important for our community to have? Yes, Kathy, I am coming for you. Uh, why do we have these delays? Well, according to the first question, Kathy said it would take a month and it's taking 3. But why did Kathy tell us it was taking a month? And maybe the next thing is answering that question. Why did she tell us that? Well, the contractor told Kathy it would take a month. Okay. Why did the contractor tell her it would take a month? Well, maybe because he told you on every job it takes a month and you're at 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, right? So rather than leave it there, keep going. Why is the contractor giving you 30 days that he can turn it around so quickly? Maybe it's because in our bid process, he wants to be the fastest and the lowest cost. Okay, why is that? And do we at this point say, well, this is the 3rd time he's done it to us. Do we find another contractor? Well, reality says a lot of us don't have a large list of contractors to go to, correct? So what we find is, how do we work with that one contractor? Do we teach them to be more realistic? Do we work with them directly? Because what you quickly find out is it's not a Kathy Boatwright issue. It's an issue with how he perceives the timeline, or does he need training in adjusting his timeline, right? So you have to go through a series of whys. So again, channel that toddler, why, and figure out your root cause. Why aren't we communicating? Why do we need XYZ? Why are we continuing to have this issue project after project after project? And that's why you can finally get down to your root cause. So, next slide. Okay, so now you want to talk about your what ifs, okay? What ifs help you build your groundwork for how you're going to fix this problem. And what you're looking at is, what if? Some sample questions. What if we have XYZ? What if we have another contractor, not include him? What if we don't have? What if we don't have any other contractors to go to that bid on our projects because of costs, time, profit they want to make? What if we do ABC? What if we remarket to newer contractors? What if we don't do it? What if we don't market to new contractors? What if we change our timeline policy? What if we change our approach to this contractor? What ifs are critical in building your groundwork? What if we make this decision? What if we don't make this decision? And the people that should be in this meeting are the ones that work daily on your program. So your management team, your rehab specialist, if it's a housing project. So those are the kinds of things that you want to build. Are there any questions here before we move forward? Okay, so now that you've figured out the what ifs, like we said, maybe this is the only contractor that bids on your projects in your area. So you need to work with him or her. You need to figure out how that's going to work. And it's very obvious since you've done 3 projects together and every time he said 30 days and you've run over those 30 days. So what is the next step in order to start fixing this issue? So I'm going to start calling on people. Kenny, if you had a contractor that consistently gave you timelines that were nowhere near realistic, what would be your first step in your what ifs?
Obviously, reviewing his timelines and telling him, due to past history, timelines are inaccurate. And if you give me 2 weeks, I know we need to add 4 weeks.
Exactly. Being realistic, but you said it, talking to him, communication, right? More projects break down because of communication issues than anything else. And again, looking at the surface, we would all go back to Kathy Boatwright and say, Kathy, you told us 30 days. We're at 90. Why? Right? So, we have to kind of work down through that. So, all right, next slide. And this is where you really start building that how to get back on track, right? You've figured out your whys, you've gotten to the root cause, and it may be more than one root cause. And if it is, then your how to get back on track may be 2 or 3 things and not one thing. So you figured out your what ifs, and now you want to determine your how. And this is how you're going to get your back on track, right? So how to get XYZ, how to get that timeline back to a realistic number. And like Kenny, that was a great suggestion. If he says 2 weeks, if that's in his mindset, you're going to go in and add 4 more, right? And that brings it into a more realistic timeline. How to make that contractor understand that he can't just throw a number out. It has to be realistic. How do we help him get to that position? Is it training? Is it better communication? Is it more frequent communication with them? Is it requiring reporting? And I'm not talking about filling out government forms. I'm talking about requiring him to check in, to email, to send pictures, to whatever. Here's the status as of this Friday, right? How to ask for XYZ. How are you going to ask that contractor to give you a better timeline? His work is great. It comes in on budget, but his timeline is just really wonky. So how do you ask for that? Do you sit down and do a face-to-face? Do you have a entire management team meet with him? That can be pretty intimidating, having 7 or 8 or 11 people sit down with one person. How do you do that without moving him off of the project so that he goes on and does a lot of the for-profit jobs and doesn't want to bid on ours anymore, right? How to eliminate. You need to look at what's working in your project and what isn't. And again, these are harder questions. So how do you eliminate the miscommunication? How do you eliminate the timeline issues? How do you eliminate him answering to 6 people instead of maybe just having a single contact, right? And finally, how to achieve. You want to go through your achievements in looking at, the smaller things. Yes, the final achievement is the project completion, but maybe he, the contractor, needs, to eat that elephant in little bitty bites and not all at once. So maybe for him to achieve a more realistic timeline, maybe what you need to do is say, okay, let's have a phone call. Let's have an on-site meeting. Let's have, an email with some pictures every 2 weeks, because we're going to help you achieve smaller benchmarks so that you can know quickly if you're off time, rather than wait those 30 days and on the 30th day call them up and go, hey, drove by the house, it isn't done, what's up? So those are the kinds of things that you need to look at. Any questions with that? All right, guys. Next slide. This one was quick and easy. So if you have questions, you can post them in the chat. If not, we are going to finish up early, and then we will go ahead and take a quick break to come back. All right. We're going to take a break. Let's see, it's 10:48. Let's come back at 11. How's that?
Okay. Hey, Sherry.